I'm now going to read a few excerpts from my story. It's called The Ermine Coat. It's part of a collection of linked stories, and it's set in Soviet Ukraine. Volkov came for the coats on Mondays. He never wore fur himself, only velvet tracksuits. After inspecting the coats, he'd hand a few bills to Mother and Aunt Nura, stack the next batch of pelts on the kitchen table. Always the same slick black pelts, as if Volkov had ripped out the stitching from the week before and returned the pieces to be resewn over and over. No one knew what type of animal they'd belonged to. Something long, caged. The thick hairs snuck between our bedsheets, under our eyelids and tongues. I worried I'd start coughing up slimy ropes, as our neighbor's cat was known to do. We picked, scratched. My schoolmates told the nurse I had lice, and if not lice, then definitely worms. My little sister, 5 years old, used to think everything sold on the black market had to be black. She liked to sit under the kitchen table, tracing the velvet humps of Volkov's calves until Mother yanked her hand away. I wanted his soft, thick thighs, to bite through the fat and meat until my teeth hit bone. He'd been rounding out, his business steady. Another Monday visit. Volkov laid a bundle of parchment paper on the kitchen table, slowly unwrapped it. The furs inside glowed white, made everything else look tired and dirty. Each pelt began with 2 angry slits from the eyes and ended with a black-tipped tail. Ermine, Volkov said, turns white in the winter, except for the tail. Why not the tail? Mother asked. Must be how the animals find each other in the snow, Aunt Nura said. Tiny flags. It's how hunters find them, said Volkov. My sister reached out to stroke a tail, but Volkov shook his head, as though worried the furs would wake. Royal furs were made of ermine, he said. More impressive still, Marilyn Monroe wore ermine. We didn't know what to do with such narrow pieces. Mother nailed them to wooden boards for stretching, but they seized up, as though panicked. I dug my fingers into the small of their backs, the spot that makes the most skittish dog melt. Nothing worked. The thought of being sewn to rows and rows of other girls turned my skin stiff too. I suggested we sew a girl's coat, and Volkov loved the idea. One of his buyers, an Italian who lived in Canada, double foreigner, double rich, he said, liked to spoil her daughter. As with every coat sold, we'd get a percentage of the profit. The ermine coat would earn a pretty sum. Volkov named a number high enough to change a life, even ruin it. But the coat had to be perfect, he warned. The Italian who lived in Canada didn't just throw her money around. She bred miniature dogs, judged the competitions. She could spot a blemish a continent away. Volkov turned to me. Her girl's about your age, he said. His gray eyes sliced across the key points of my body, chest, waist, hips. Other men had begun looking at me this way on the streets. I'd become the sum of my chest, waist, hips. Someone to be assembled. Soon I'd start wearing Aunt Nura's oversized frocks, wanting to be whole again. That evening, when Mother pressed the tape measure to my skin, its cold metal lip made me think of Volkov. I conjured the buyer's daughter instead, soft in her ermine coat. She trudged across a snowy field, no trees or bushes around, not even a speck of dirt, nothing to mark movement except the slow crunch of her feet, and she'd better not slip and fall, because no one would find her, not even with her tiny flags.